Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from 991, the Sports Animal, Tyler Ivens is here. Tyler, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
How are you, bud? We were just talking before you hit record. It's right before the snow hits. And I'm about to go pick up. I was just right as soon as we hit record, I was like, I guess I need salt and sand for my driveway. So I'm going to chat with you. I'm going to stop by the Lowe's Depot. Which one? I don't know. It's a non-sponsor here, so we're going to bill you. And
it could be either one.
Could be. Always open. I'm going to imagine that the Chase Thomas DMs are always open. Football, snow, basketball, potpourri, pour it all in one pot and stir.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you a snow guy?
That's a really good question. I love being cold more than I love being hot. And seeing that my tenure of my life has taken me to many cold regions of the United States. I guess some would say that I'm a seasoned vet when it comes to driving in the snow, being in the snow. But I think the one thing that a lot of people don't get enough credit for is, yeah, sure, you might be able to drive in Long Island. You might be able to drive in Iowa. You might be able to drive in Chicago and Wisconsin and Nebraska. There's not a lot of hills in those states. So for those of you listening, for those of you who are like, well, why does Tennessee get such a bad rap? Because one, you guys are trying to tackle many different areas and slopes without chains, without four-wheel drive, without that little extra kick. So just be smart. Park your car. Run and get your milk, your eggs, and your bread, and just sit back and see what the rest of the week has for you. Or tune into 99.1 The Sports Animal, because you never know what you might get out of that as well. So I would say I like the snow because I just don't like the heat, if that makes any sense.
The last time it snowed here last year, that first night, I made a bad call, Tyler. Wife and I were like, we're going to order some Domino's. And
okay.
The roads were bad. Like I didn't like they were bad. Do you remember? Like it was ice bad.
Oh,
like,
I'm on till 7.
Yeah,
and the snow started at like, I don't know, 5:36.
Yeah,
but Will and I both drive 4-wheel drive vehicles, so we were like, this isn't a big deal. Even in the vehicle I owned at the time, which was a 4Runner, I've upgraded now, but to another 4-wheel drive vehicle. Even driving Kingston Pike. It was the quietest at 7 o'clock and the emptiest I have ever seen Kingston Pike. At one point in time, I had windows down at the red light at the intersection of North Shore and Kingston, and you couldn't hear an engine in sight. You could hear the humming of a grocery store vending machine. That was it. Yeah. And it was really eerie. But you didn't have the pizza delivered. You were going to go pick up.
So I think our original plan was to have it delivered, but they weren't delivering because of the road. So and then my wife and I looked at it. We're like, I think I can do it because I have I'm not a car guy, Tyler. Like for the good folks who want to take advantage of me in the car department, I'm always open for business because you can tell me anything, and I'm like, all right, well that sounds right. The carburetor, man, classic carburetor issue. Like I don't know really. You keep saying 4-wheel drive. I don't know if I have 4-wheel drive. I have an SUV. I guess it's 4-wheel drive. Maybe not. I don't know. But
you're going to need to know that in the next probably 12 hours, 18 hours.
That ship sailed, man. I'm in my mid-30s. Like my dad tried. That ship has sailed. And I don't retain it. Like I could tell you about the 1998 Seattle Seahawks. I couldn't tell you anything about what I'm doing with my car and anything like that. Like it's not.
Okay, so we're cut from the same cloth because I used to say all the time, I don't know about example A or B, but I can tell you who led the American League in home runs in 1995.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's where we store that. Unfortunately, we don't store the other stuff, the far more important stuff. But made it, man. I will tell you that straight, like off Broadway, because we were going down Broadway to that Domino's. I'm telling you, I was sliding and like pulling up into the Domino's, like my car is like sliding down this, and I'm like, this is the most embarrassing way to like total your car possible, is just to be like, we didn't really want to cook and we just really wanted some Domino's on the snow night, and just
you're fishtailing for pineapple on some pepperoni pizza. That's crazy.
100%. Like it was I was sweating. I was sweating getting down Broadway.
I can just see your wife. She's got like every handle she can grab.
Oh no, she didn't go. I was on my own. Like I was on my own.
No.
I was on my own, man.
No.
It was
You know
it was
what?
tough.
You know what? In the situation, I probably would have taken the same route she did.
I'm not the world's best driver. I'll go ahead and say that. I do the best I can. I'm a slow driver. Look, I'm already aging into junior soprano in a lot of ways. I kind of look but like there's just, I'm just an old guy driver. Like I have an old soul, and I'm just like I go the speed limit. I'd never go over 9 of the speed limit. We're all gonna get there just in time. So I have no problem going 2 miles an hour in the ice and just causing mayhem behind me, because I'm like, I'll get there when I'm getting there. I'm not totaling my car for this. I'm not doing that.
I think that we learn the easy and the hard way as somebody who has been in accidents before involving the snow. Quick little story time, and I'll just make it very brief. I actually have a huge scar, as my hair is. You could tell from working out this morning. I still have a huge scar up the side of my head. I got T-boned in Iowa, busting my head wide open. Oh, it's a true story. I'm driving. I'm in the vehicle I just got was not 4-wheel drive. That's what led me to getting a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So I was trying to get home one night after a shift. I just left television, and I thought I was stopping, and I just lock up and go right into the 100% my fault. Lock up, go right into the intersection. 250 F-250 comes to the intersection. Bang! Lays me out. I hit my head so hard, I thought I hit it clean. Windows cracked. Driver's side window cracked. I get out of the car, and I'm like, I am so sorry. Are you okay? And I saw the look of fear on his eyes, and he goes, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, you're bleeding. And I looked down, and I was wearing a Navy shirt that night, so it was kind of hard to dictate at like 7:30 in the Midwest. I'm like, am I? And he walks over at the flashlight, and I had this huge gape, just blood just spitting out of my, oh, yeah. Guy who hit me and the accident I caused puts me in his truck, takes me up the road to the walk-in clinic, 14 staples on the side of my head, car's totaled. He drops me back off at my apartment that night. I'm the one who caused it. Good Samaritan sits around because I'm living there by myself.
Yeah.
Click, 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 14. And I'm literally that night just like looking at my head. Like they had to go in and shave me so they could. Oh, man, it was bad. Oh, man. I've taken a lot of hits in my wrestling, rugby, football, baseball days. Worst I've ever taken. December 2013, snow apocalypse. Cracked, man. Cracked that windshield wide open. Yeah. Jarrett Garantano took some serious hits at his time at Tennessee. I got destroyed one Christmas back in Iowa during my tenure with ESPN. I will never want to put anybody through that ever again.
Moral of the story, folks. Stay home this weekend.
Yes.
Like, just don't be a hero. Like, just stay home.
There's going to be a couple, and you're going to hear this, and you're going to watch this and go, rats. I should have listened to it.
Yeah, like Tyler and Chase, we got you covered here
Exactly.
for the local Knoxvillians dealing with Snowpocalypse 2025 here. Speaking of just coldness, I wanted to ask you this: is like what with the Daily Show and talking to folks and text line and this, that, and the other. You're very plugged in terms of where the temperament is for Vol fans right now, and I'm curious from your vantage point, because like I lurk the general's quarters on VolQuest and read what people are tweeting about, kind of, but I don't know if that's a majority temperament in terms of where the balls are.
You've got a good pulse. Yeah, that's a good pulse.
Well, what do you think the temperature of Vol fans is as a whole with Josh Heupel going into year 5 now?
So I think it's been many layers, tiers. Let's say tiers. If you go based on timestamp number 1, Tennessee lost 18 players, one of which was Mike Matthews. Oh my God, OMG, what's going to happen? You can't let this happen. I go on the air, I try to fan the flames. I'm not sources guy. I'm not ear to the road guy. I'll just say now, because it's happened, at least a few of us over at the Animal, we knew about 3 days in advance the Mike Matthews news was going to come back positive, but that's not our story to tell. And I think I've said that to you many times when we've chatted. I'm the type of person, I don't put other people's business out there. That's not my story to tell. This is a kid who felt like that he needed to be compensated a little bit more financially than he was before. He's back. Success. Once that news broke, a little bit of the fanning of the flames died down a little bit. It was okay. Well, Mike Matthews is back. And then the grocery list of the offseason then started. Well, how do you replace the offensive line? Well, what are you going to do when it comes to having somebody that replaces the likes of a first-round talent and James Pierce, et cetera, et cetera? Then it was, okay, maybe perhaps we don't need to be freaking out as much. Let's see what happens in the return to the transfer portal. If Tennessee's big game hunting right now, if you will, pew, who are they going to land? What 18-point buck are they going to land? Transfer portal window's closed, and there's some people now who are like, I think right now the question, and we're going to talk about this, we're recording this on, what is it, the 9th, Thursday, the 9th, excuse me. Our topic today on our show, and we're going to go live in about 3 hours, is going to be, can this roster that we currently know it as today, present day 2025, Jan 9, can it return to the college football playoff in 2025? And I think the easy answer right now is no. I don't think it can. It's funny because everybody, in my opinion, likes to compare free agency or NIL, if you will, or the transfer portal, kind of like what professional sports free agency is every year. There's a little difference, though. These guys are signing extensive, lengthy contracts, some of 5, some up to a dozen, 14 plus years. You're not having to go through free agency every year to re-recruit your players, even some that you believe that you've already had in the works or in place until he leaves for the draft. Nico. I think that there's some people out there who think the results of professional sports free agency should mirror the results of now this so quote unquote free agency in college sports, and it's just not happening that way. They're expecting this big present under the tree of, my favorite baseball team got Juan Soto, which as a Mets fan, it was kind of like, oh my God, they got Juan Soto. You sign a big time wide receiver, somebody gets traded, free agency to whatever North American professional sports level you enjoy. You know what I'm saying. I think Tennessee fans right now kind of already have an idea of what this is going to look like next year. And I think the expectations are a little lower than what they expected. Josh Heupel is a coach, who does not like to start younger players. So if you're a younger player like a Mike Matthews and you see, okay, finding starting time is going to be difficult, at least in 2024, my goodness, look what's available for 2025. So that shoe kind of fits now. I think moving forward, I think Tennessee fans are now to the realization of, well, Chase, Kelsey Pope, Alec Ablin, he likes promoting from within. I mean, he brought some in when he was in place and they've stayed in place. But once he's taken over his tenure, he likes promoting from within. And I think not only is that the case with coaches, but I think that's also the case with players as well. Josh Heupel's not the type of coach where he's going to go, I've got 9 positions I've got to fill. 9 players in the transfer portal. We'll pick and play as we go. No, he wants to do a lot of his heavy lifting in the recruiting periods. And then when there needs to be a little piece of a corner chair added or an end table added or rearrange a recliner, then he'll go to the transfer portal. I think that's kind of difficult for Tennessee fans who see the type of money that gets brought in, allegedly spent on a roster. I don't know what number you've looked at, but I have a pretty good grasp that Ohio State at $22 million, Tennessee was at 17, close to 18. Was there a $4 million gap in the NIL if you want to compare rosters of how the college football playoff game opened up? I think some Balls fans kind of wanted to react the way that I do. Back to the Mets analogy. When I lose to somebody I'm not supposed to, good. Go out, spend them, and make sure your players are better than theirs next year. We'll worry about 4 and 5 years down the road, 4 or 5 years down the road. And it's just not like that in college sports.
Yeah. I think I wonder too how many ball fans who saw Oregon get splattered worse than Tennessee did not long after, who we know Oregon, that's an expensive roster too that also got waxed by Ohio State. I think there was a little bit of an overreaction to that loss. And one of the things that I think is interesting because I'm with you, I don't think this is a college football playoff team next year. I think the schedule is worse. Like if you look at Heupel and odd years in 21 and 23, what is the common denominator in terms of why they won 7 and 8 games? Well, it's because you went to Tuscaloosa and Gainesville those years. And until they get competitive in the second half against Georgia, that's not on the docket right now. You know now that 10 wins is the requirement in the SEC to make the CFP. And for you to get to 10 wins, in 25, like you're going to have to win a game you haven't won in a very long time. Like you're going to have to either upset Georgia, which we'll see, like a new quarterback maybe, but they've attacked the portal, especially at receiver, the way I think you and I would have liked Tennessee to attack the portal, which is the mixture where Georgia brought in 5 true freshman receivers here, and one of them's a 5-star in Taylor. Tywin Taylor, I think is his name. But they keep Nitro Tuggle, who was basically their Mike Matthews, who might have gone in the portal and ends up not. And you also went and got some vets, because right now Tennessee has one vet in their receiver room, and it's Chris Brazzell, who had one of the weirder seasons in Tennessee football history, because, I mean, he has maybe the most important catch of the season against Alabama. He goes off against the bye games, and you're like, oh, look at Chris Brazzell. And then just nothing the rest of the way, and just a complete no-show. And I don't know what to make of Chris Brazzell in year 2 in the system, but I think people who are expecting like a year 2 jump like Dante Thornton had, I don't tend to agree there, because he was.
That's already that talk's already beginning.
It's beginning, and I just don't think it's the same.
Dante Thornton, year 2. We actually had to have a subject a week and a half ago. Can you name an offensive player who came into Josh Heupel's system, recruited, transfer portal in year 1, and excelled?
I mean, Velus Jones in year 1 was really good.
Okay, yeah, but would you agree that a lot of it came from special teams?
I think a lot came from special teams, but he was just such a Swiss Army knife guy that, like, he was really
okay. So maybe he was Christmas Day ready. You could take him.
Yeah, he was just a plug and play. Like he just knew what he was doing.
That's a good answer. VJ didn't come up in our conversation. But the point of the subject we were getting at was it usually takes a second year of marinating before you see these people emerge. So now when you start putting a lot of these test subjects under the magnifying glass and go, okay, maybe year 2. Yeah. I'm interested if Chris Brazzell, who shines so well at Tulane in the AAC, if maybe the year 1 was the SEC difference in the talent gap, that's going to be one of my large spring fall questions is Chris Brazzell leadership, Chris Brazzell development, how he can adjust to year 2 in the SEC.
Well, and I think the other part is like, so, because I think Tennessee fans, I don't know where you're at with this, but this is something that I think is pretty fascinating, is all of my questions are offense related, which is probably not where you want to be with an offensive-minded coach going into year 5, because I think Tim Banks has gotten too much heat, especially with how the Ohio State game went. Like, I understand, like, the not getting Carson back on the ground, the Georgia game, that was a surprise that Tennessee was not able to get home in that spot. But by and large, the reason Tennessee won 10 games this year, the biggest reason outside of Dylan Sampson, is the defense. And what that defense was, I mean, this offense was shut out in the first half for a month straight. Like I think there's some, it's just, you forget, because Nico was really good from the second half of the Alabama game on, the rest of the way that he really settled in, that you kind of forget that. But it was brutal in a way we haven't seen Tennessee offenses in a long time. And I think the consistency is that, look, man, like Rodney Garner, he's elite. Like, the defensive line's going to be fine post James Pierce. I'm not worried about that. They've developed internally on the defensive side of the ball. Like, the defense is going to be great again next year. The linebackers, I think, will be better than what we saw this past year. I think Edwin Spillman's going to be a really good player. Boo Carter, year 2 in the system. I mean, you get year 2 of Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson at the corner spots. You are probably going to upgrade a little bit at safety. So, to me, the defense is like, it's fine. I don't know why you want to rock the boat there. I think everyone is developing and they're hitting the portal the right way. They know what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Like, Tennessee's defense is good enough to be like, they're right there with the Penn States, the Notre Dames, like that. Like, it's not peak Georgia defense. It's not a perfect situation, but Tim Banks is a top 15 DC. Like, this is still a good defense that I know what they're going to be, and I know they're going to be really good next year. I don't know the offense is going to be good next year. This is an offense in a passing game that was 94th in conference play. Like, I don't know. We have 2 years of evidence now that this vertical passing game is broken. We have 2 years, and that's half of the Heupel tenure. Like, the wide splits helped the running game. Like, Dylan Sampson was great.
Yeah.
And you're going full youth movement here at receiver. Maybe that works out. You're going to start a true freshman right tackle and a second redshirt sophomore in Lance Hurd, who was not good his first year at left tackle.
Yeah, you're putting Generous.
Yeah, like what do we think? Like
Yeah.
you're replacing Cooper Mays. We've seen briefly what it looked like without Cooper Mays in this offense. I like William Satterwhite, but it's still we got to see it. 4 new offensive linemen starters potentially. New running back starter. I have so many questions. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but I'm not on the side of over 50% optimistic that they figure it out offensively in 25. Is that too pessimistic?
No. So, okay, let's quickly go down the line. I'll tell you the biggest, and we kind of knew where it was going, especially his lack of getting on the field with times the injury. I had high hopes and expectations for Cam Selden. So it was no surprise whatsoever he was entering the transfer portal, especially whenever you started seeing some of those reps go into other players, especially the 2 spot. The Deshaun Bishop emerge. That's huge. Biased. I'm very close with his coaching staff. A lot of my close friends, even before Deshaun came through Carnes, spoke highly of this kid. He went to Coast Carolina. Jimmy Chad. Oh, reopened. Oh, they reopened. Oh, this is incredible. There are some questions. Work ethic, none. Durability with Deshaun. That's a big question mark. Who is your guy after you get past him? When I look at the offense, to me, it all starts and ends with the offensive line. It's that simple. You are replacing a second-team All-American in Cooper Mays, excuse me. You're replacing Javonte Spraggins, who it seems that right guard position for the last couple of sessions, if you will, rotations, has been – look, I know everybody talks about Coop, and I know everybody talks about what the tackles have done. My God, if you would actually hear some of the stories that we heard about Jerome Carvin during his time and now what we've heard about Javonte Spraggins, what all they had to go through weekly to get ready to play Saturdays. You didn't see Javonte miss many snaps after he got past that serious knee injury last year. But what he had to do daily to suit up, it's the stuff you don't hear about because all we do is watch the football on ESPN if we're not at the game. We don't actually follow tackles. How long did they hold their block? How long did the kind of nuances that come with the sport. Javonte Spraggins, if anybody asks me, hey, who was your MVP this year that nobody talks about? Javonte Spraggins. That's not even close. And look, he had his warts at times, but I'm talking about from battle tested. Kid right now kid's been under the knife plenty of times, and he gave his all for Tennessee. Slap the sign. That guy is legit. I'll just want to share that nugget and move on. You like the additions of having some of the, I don't know where you stand on this. I don't know if your listeners, if you know this, I'm a big Diego Pavia fan. Have been since this time. For a lot of people may not know this. I've just brought up my time in ESPN when I was working in the Big 10 and the Big 12. I befriended Jerry Kill during his time when he was the coach at Minnesota. So when Jerry became the head coach at New Mexico State, he kind of put me on to this kid he was recruiting, Diego Pavia. As a high school wrestler, Diego Pavia, 3-time state New Mexico wrestling champion, I just started doing a little digging on him. I did the YouTube thing where instead of learning how to make sushi or play a guitar, suggested videos, Diego Pavia. I'm like, all right, let me check this kid out. And then we would watch college football on Tuesdays, and I'm like, who is this bowling ball? I'm getting to a point here. When he transferred to Vanderbilt, I went on the air for like 3 straight days. And Will's like, will you calm down about a right-handed quarterback at Vanderbilt? I'm like, I'm telling you, this guy is going to be a problem. And we saw what he became this year. Now, my question to you is, as I refer to him, the rock star Diego Pavia, there's some people who now see him get the extra year of eligibility, and they're like, you're messing the sport of college football up. Boo Diego Pavia. Less than 2 weeks later, hey guys, Miles Kitselman, I'm coming back. Oh, we love it now. Yeah, Miles Kitselman's coming back. He's actually one of the sure-handed guys. I'll ask you, Chase, when I'm looking around, bouncing around like you are, looking at the 11-man roster offensive side of the ball, tight end, upgrade, or did Miles Kitselman show you enough this year where you're like, hell yeah, 11 games next year, maybe some postseason aspirations?
I don't think it matters. And okay. I don't mean that as like, Miles Kitselman's fine. Tight end just isn't a big part of this offense. In terms of blocking, sure. Like, it's a part of the blocking scheme, and tight ends had to chip a lot this year with how the tackles were playing in pass pro. Like, Miles Kitselman is a good player, but in this offense, like you saw, like, put it this way, like I think Miles Kitselman led Tennessee in receiving against Georgia. Like, if you look at the box score at the end of the game and you see Miles Kitselman is at the top of your receiving chart, Tennessee's offense had a bad day. Like, it's one of those, like, it's just, he's solid, but the passing game, I love Jacob Warren, those guys, like, in the past, like, yeah, they're solid, but it's not in the passing game, the tight end position is just not a real factor. And you thought maybe it would become a little bit more with Ethan Davis, who is back for year 3, and who knows what they have for him. But I just don't think it really matters. The only kind of tight end that's really shown that there is a difference with them not in this roster is Princeton Fant. Because Princeton Fant in the red zone was a complete Swiss Army knife for Tennessee, and a really interesting player. And I had hoped, like, speaking of Cam Seldon, that he could be a Princeton Fant if they evolved, because he had the exact same height and weight as Princeton Fant when he came to Tennessee. And it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, he's just kind of in that Jalen Hurd kind of Swiss Army knife. You don't really know what he is. You just got to figure something out. And I was like, man, I don't know if you could sell him on it, but like Princeton Fant they miss Princeton Fant in the red zone. They miss what he is versatility wise. Kitzelman's fine, but it's not tight end. Like, you know what I'd want back for a year? If Brew can do it, Brew McCoy just coming back for his leadership and everything else. Like, I understand that he was not the same guy as he was before the ankle injury against South Carolina a year ago, but that doesn't mean he won't be that guy next year. Like, he'll be a full 2 years almost removed from that injury. Like, what does he look like? Because I think he technically can come back. Brew McCoy, if he's open to it, depending on where like he gets, I would absolutely sign up for one more year of Brew McCoy. I am terrified of just the lack of depth and what's available in the portal at the veteran spot for Tennessee. And if Chris Brazzell is your lone veteran in the room, I don't know. Like, we'll see. It doesn't mean it can't work out. Giving Mike Matthews the full reins and giving Braylon Staley and maybe Travis Smith, who I like a lot out of Westlake back in Atlanta, maybe he factors in on the outside because he's a big-bodied contested catch guy that Tennessee has not really had on the outside since Cedric Tillman. So I would love for Travis Smith Jr. to be that kind of guy. But to me, it's less about getting Miles Kitselman that extra year. Like Dante Thornton, I wish, because Dante Thornton's going to be the most underutilized great Tennessee receiver in a really long time, because Dante Thornton, the Oklahoma game, the Florida game, the Bama game, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, like, I don't know if Tennessee gets back into that game if you don't have a Dante Thornton on the outside. I don't know if anybody else steps up. Dante Thornton was your only reliable chunk play receiver. He was right there with Ryan Williams and Trey Harris all season long in his yak production. He was a yak guy. He was a perfect fit in this Heupel scheme. And if he had been on the outside for the last 2 years, like, I wonder what his numbers would have looked like. Like, he was so comfortable on the outside. Dante Thornton, I would kill to have Dante Thornton back for one more year. I would feel so much different about this receiver room if you got one more year of Dante Thornton. Like, because I think he is if he gets enough snaps, he's a legitimate star on the outside in this offense.
I'm glad you brought up the Brew McCoy angle, because for people out there who do not know, and look, I'm not an expert when it comes to COVID years, junior college years now, especially with the NCAA continuously taking L's. And look, the one thing that I've had to quickly learn, especially when it comes to the working man in the United States of America, there are laws in place. Don't be surprised if we don't see something where somebody could play well into their – look, we already see eligibility starting to get a little chaotic. Just saw a ninth-year guy from Miami finally see all of his eligibility get exhausted. What I'm getting at is with rules when it comes to labor laws in the United States, I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but what it comes to trying to cap people at money they can make, you did not hear this from me, but there may or may not already be businesses in Knoxville, Tennessee that I work with that are already setting their 2025 budgets about acquiring players for NIL purposes that may or may already be on their books from previous years. So the point I'm getting at is, for those of you to whack the piñata and shake which Tennessee player might fall out, I'm not saying that he is returning. That's not what I'm getting at. But the fact that you brought up that a very important piece from both a leadership and an on-field standpoint has a year of eligibility left, and he's already exercising money made potentially on the next level, or money he could coop when he stays here for his last additional year. Great conversation piece to have, Chase Thomas.
I welcome him back. Like, you saw that picture, Nico, Brew, and Mike working out together. Like, you can tell, I think Brew and
in California, where there'll be no snow in the next 48 to 72 hours.
But I look at it in terms of, it would not be a no. And I've seen some Vol fans who would like, we got a brand new slate on at the receiver position. I'm like, no, Brew's a good player. Like, you, if Brew wants to come back, you welcome Brew McCoy back. No questions asked.
You tell me what happened 2 years ago when Tennessee lost both Brew McCoy and they lost Keenan Peely in the same year.
Yeah.
because for those of you who are like, well, leadership's something that's I can tell you right now, and I'm not going to out the name, but if I told you the 2 players that I've chatted with, one that I have a week-to-week relationship with because of where our paths cross and we talk off the record, that's why I'm not saying the name. I'll say what he said, but not the name, has said, hey, there are a lot of leaders, but they were kind of introverted and they didn't want to speak up and have the real rah-rah, quote, rah-rah Rudy moment. But that season changed when we lost Brew because we had already lost Keenan during the Virginia game. You lose your defensive leader and your offensive leader, and you still have a chance to recoup one of your offensive leaders. Yeah, sure, it's not sexy. He had to wait till the end of the year to catch his first touchdown pass. What Brew McCoy does on and off the field, the stories I've heard about how Brew helps out his teammates when making sure some of the extracurriculars don't step in front of what the mission is to win on Saturdays. Stuff that nobody would ever hear about that I'm blessed enough because of my position. You get to hear secondhand or see firsthand. Brew McCoy is a player that will never get the recognition that he deserves because of what he says and does to keep his players and teammates in line. Brew McCoy is a vastly important piece if he was to come back in 2025, without a question. Without a question.
And then, I mean, it's running back too, right? Like the final thing here in the hype.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson, if you could have talked to him, like he should have gone. Like Dylan, it's like one of those where you have to tell him, like, you got to start the NFL clock. Like you've got, like the amount of carries he got this year, I mean, was he's a VFL forever. I appreciate it.
No, he was ridding a car at the airport. I'm running that sucker into the ground and then giving it back. You go here,
and I appreciate it. He did a carry on Johnson for Tennessee. He did a carry on, and I appreciate that. But he had to go. But also, man, if you had him for one more year to kind of ease the gap here, because you talk about Deshaun Bishop. I like Deshaun Bishop a lot. He hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. He's not someone you can rely on to this point. I like when he's healthy, he's a good player.
Sure.
Peyton Lewis, good. Doesn't really have that game record. Like, you have back-to-back NFL backs. Jalen Wright was a big home run threat. You forget that he was averaging 7 yards a carry for the full season 2 years ago. Like
7 yards a carry with like 3 guys on his back.
Yes. Jalen Wright, I think people are going to forget in over the years too, because like Dylan Sampson obviously had this all-time great single season. Jalen Wright was the perfect Heupel offense running back. And I mean that in like the home run hitter. You kind of need that guy when you get these light boxes to, when they get to that second level, you're terrified as a defense because like you're scared to give him too much room to operate, because Jalen Wright always had the track speed, but he put on weight and muscle over his couple years here at Tennessee to become more of a complete back. And he did that. Like Jalen Wright was, I think, what you want out of a Tennessee running back in this scheme. And I think Dwan Morris could be that. Dwan Morris at Oakland is a really good player, but he's a true freshman. And I don't know what that looks like, but this is going to be the most uncertain I've been about a Tennessee running back room since Heupel has been here. And it doesn't mean it won't work out again. And I think they'll always benefit from the light boxes and the wide splits to the receivers. But I do think some of these guys have real health concerns. Like Peyton Lewis banged up, Deshaun Bishop banged up. Like it can get very thin and dicey in a hurry here because you're losing your workhorse from a year ago who you put a lot on in Dylan Sampson. And we'll see if they add somebody in the portal. I think they kind of have to.
Do you believe that we know? Okay, this is hypothetical 2020 hindsight. Do you believe we find out the player that Jalen Wright is if Jabari Small doesn't have the knee injury?
Yes.
Okay. So Jalen Wright's talent was just when you opened the lid, you'd find it. It's just when you did open the lid.
Yes.
Because, you had to have Joe's struggles for Hendon Hooker to be unlocked.
Yeah.
So I often ask, did you need kind of that 2-minute? He probably would have gotten hurt anyway. I'm a firm believer. If you step off the sidewalk and you roll your ankle, you were meant to do it anyway. Anybody can get hurt at any time. When they tried to rush that last drive against Georgia that they were getting destroyed here at home, and Jabari hurt his knee, and that's when we kind of saw a little bit of glimpse of Jalen Wright, but the full treasure trove got opened up and the Jabari Small injury happened. So I ask, you do believe, yes, that Jalen Wright's talent would eventually emerge even with the Jabari Small injury?
Yeah.
So if I asked you right now, who do you have more faith in day one, game one, Syracuse, Peyton Lewis or Deshaun Bishop?
It's Peyton Lewis, but I don't feel great about it.
Okay. I'd lean Deshaun Bishop.
And that's fair too. Like I think there's not a wrong answer there. I think they're going to split pretty even carries. Like
I
would guess it's going to be pretty split, right?
If Cam Selton's healthy, they do another 3-headed monster this year, but Dylan takes off with it.
Yeah.
Last year, 2 years ago, everybody kind of had their unique moment. It was Jalen Wright, Jabari when you needed short yardage, Dylan spinning out of 7 tackles so Devin Leary in Kentucky doesn't beat you. They all had their kind of like spark plug moment.
Yeah.
I think last year you do have Dylan, Peyton, Cam, and I don't know if you see Deshaun as much, but because of the Cam situation, Deshaun emerged, or because of the Cam situation, Peyton emerged. Remember, Deshaun wasn't even the healthiest either before he got a chance. So
yeah,
I think a Josh Heupel well-oiled machine is many backs as possible who, one, can hold on to the football, and two, they don't get stopped in the backfield. I think if there's been any year where maybe there's a couple of gears missing from the watch, I think 25, and I think rightfully so, a red flag should be put up at that position.
I'm also just curious if Darrell Sims is a rotator guy to the same degree that Jerry Mack was. Like, was it by design, just by circumstance? I don't know.
Yeah, and look, there are a lot of people in this area who like Darrell Sims because of his time at Carson Newman, and I think that there are people out there. Sims, special teams coach, for anybody who you can do your own research, but I don't want anybody to think he'd shared the same position. Sims is a rah guy. So, but from a how much do you rotate? How much part of his system do you see him that Heupel relies on him of who's fresh and who's not? That's a $64,000 question as well that needs to be added at the bottom of the list.
Final thing here. Hoops gets crushed in Gainesville on Tuesday night in historic fashion.
Crushed. Did you call it crushed? Crushed.
That was tough, man. My wife was losing it. We're sitting there
lowest output in Rick Barnes' history.
But Rick Barnes, after the game, looks at it and this week is like that. It was good for us, and it will end up being good for us. Do you share that optimism that that kind of loss will end up rallying the troops, or do you think it's more of the way that game went is like that's just going to happen sometimes because this offense is so much more predicated on 3-point shooting, drive and kick, and things like that, that when it's not falling, I mean, that was all-time bad in terms of not falling. Yeah. But I was telling, I forgot who I was talking to this week, where I'm like, they play like the Houston Rockets with Harden and Paul, with Sakai and Chaz Lanier, where that's what they remind me of.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really high floor, but when it's ugly, it's ugly. And I think Tennessee fans are not prepared for how ugly it's going to be. Not a lot, but I think it's going to happen again. I think Tennessee's going to have these horrible nights shooting, and it's like they're still going to defend hard. They're still going to play their guys a bunch because that's what D'Antoni loves. D'Antoni loves the high minutes with his 7 to 8 guys. Barnes is going to play high minutes for his 7 to 8 guys.
Yeah.
And when it's not rolling, it's going to be ugly. But when it's on, they're going to bury people. Like, they're still going to bury some people down the rest of the way. I don't think it's time to panic, but I do think the volatility of Tennessee men's hoops this year is going to be a little bit more aggressive than what we've seen in years past, because I think they just play a lot like those Chris Paul, James Harden, D'Antoni Rockets teams.
I think that game against Florida was an awful showing from Tennessee, and that's putting it lightly. Somebody on Twitter asked me, I was catching a lot of heat earlier in the day because I had picked Florida to win the day before on the air. We do a segment Riding with Ivens where financially heavy on Florida. It just made too much sense, and it kind of played out the way that it did. So that night, people were just like, okay, my apologies for my comments earlier. What do you believe is wrong? 3 things stood out, especially in the first 20 minutes. Energy, none of it. Tennessee, look, not that they were disinterested, but from an energy standpoint, they were not matching what Florida was doing. There was a lot of just easy putbacks. They weren't going hard, knowing somebody was on their back. Number 2, Chaz Lanier very rarely got a shot in the first half that wasn't outside on the perimeter. I'm pretty sure he was 0-6 from 3 in the first half. So Florida, even though Chaz can shoot and score from anywhere, they said, we're going to make you force you into low percentage shots than trying to let you get hot with a heat check closer and closer. And I think that Florida did something that usually Tennessee's accustomed to doing. That defense they had, I refer to it as Python. Florida's defense that night, the more Tennessee tried to move around and try to get more physical, Florida just got tighter and made them into boneheaded decisions. My problem with Tennessee this year, and it's the same thing that I said even before Cam Carr left, it was the situation I said before JP Estrella got hurt. My reasoning for Tennessee to lose the game against Florida was I thought because of how fast Florida gets up and down the floor, nobody in the SEC transition scoring-wise is faster than Florida. It was going to be a clashing of styles. Florida wants to get up and down the floor. They want to average 90 points a game. Tennessee wants to average 74. So that when you look at it, I thought aggressive defense trying to slow down a sexy Ferrari flying by you, quick whistles, much like we saw Zakai only foul out for the second time in his Tennessee career against Illinois. I thought we would see a tight whistle. And I made that reference after the Illinois game Monday following the weekend. I go, if there's any game this year where Tennessee is seeing the opposition shooting the bonus at the 10-minute mark, 9-minute mark, they're cooked. They're done. Why? They don't have a bench. Then JP Estrella gets hurt. Oh, if anything happens, then Cam Card leaves for the reasons that he leaves. Tennessee right now, realistically, can only play, in my opinion, 8 players. So at any time, look, it's great to see Jordan Gainey be able to take over the point guard role that a lot of people last year were going, okay, if not Zakai, do you give it to Jemai? No, not Jemai. Okay, do you give it to, okay. There's so many questions of those years. Tyreek Key, Key can't do it? Okay, yeah. I think it's great that Tennessee had this moment. And I think they're going to have a few more of these moments, as you pointed out. The SEC this year is they're the best conference in college basketball. They are. They proved it in the ACC Challenge. The Big 12, even though they didn't lose their heavy hitters with Texas and Oklahoma, I still want to see how Arizona transitions over, ASU transitions over. BYU, I don't think is a big slobber knocker like we believe that they are. I think maybe some of the other schools that came in can – I mean, even last year, UCF was knocking off Kansas. So, again, I don't think it's the strongest conference that we've seen. Hell, Tennessee's already played Baylor, who I think is one of their heavyweights, and they didn't have a problem with them. What I'm getting at is simply this. I said this at the beginning of the season, and I'm going to say true to this statement. Dalton Knecht was a better scorer. Chaz Lanier is a better basketball player. I firmly believe, and it might be questioned now because of where the roster is constructed. But I said week 1, before they tipped off whoever they opened the season up against, Granger County Domestic University, whatever. I thought no matter the outcome of this season, even if Tennessee doesn't make it back to the Elite Eight, that this roster is in better position and was constructed better than what the 23-24 roster is. When you talk about what you got in the transfer portal compared to what Rick lost, graduation, and what they have now, this was the best showing yet. I know we're talking about Tennessee losing an SEC Player of the Year. I get it. But the fact that we're already talking about Chaz Lanier as already a Wooden Award finalist, this guy has jumped. I put the numbers up on my Twitter about 4 days ago. He went from preseason 31st overall, tied for the 13th best odds in conference play. He's up to 4th now. 5th if he slipped after the performance against Florida. Do I think he's John Ibroom? No. Do I think he's Cooper Flagg? No. Do I think has a chance to be a back-end first-round talent? Do I think with put in the right system he can shine like we've seen with Dalton Knecht? Yes. Bringing it back to Knoxville, though, quickly, I think the answer to your question is this. Tennessee's going to have to learn 2 things in the next 2 weeks because at the end of the month, they go through a 4 top 25 stretch. Mississippi State, another rematch, Florida, et cetera, Kentucky on the Auburn. Who's your second scoring threat consistently after Chaz Lanier, which we've had to ask that question before? And number 2, when is Darlin Stone DeBar going to end up being the Darlin Stone DeBar who came in the transfer portal? Watching him last year in the CAA, what he was doing at Hofstra, he was supposed to be a better, more athletic Josiah Jordan James. It's not my business to put his personal business out through the internets, but the time that he can finally get his head right after some personal things that have happened in his life, that guy is going to end up being a star for this team. And I haven't talked about Okpara being an upgrade over both Awaka as well as disappear into the shrubs Homer Simpson style like Jonas Adu does. But what you got so far from Igor Milicic, eliminating not only second chance points for the opposition, but helping you 18 total rebounds in one game, it sucks. You got punched in the mouth. Go to Texas, come out of this week 1-1, get home with a matchup against Georgia. All is right in the world. It's that simple.
That was a game you needed Estrella too. I think there's just gonna be different ones. Estrella, that was one thing I wrote down. I'm like, this is an Estrella game. Like, this is one where you just needed Estrella in there, and that's just gonna happen.
Let me ask you, what do you think it is about the O-Dome? I brought this up. I was doing the Sports Source here in town, and one of the other reasons why I picked Florida in that game.
Yeah.
Barnes now. 5 career matchups he's played down in the swamp. 1-4. The average losses in those 4 losses is now up to 22 points. When Tennessee goes down to Florida and they lose, they don't lose close. They get blown out of the gym, and they got blown out of the gym.
Well, it's also like football. It's just kind of like what take your pick, the O-Dome or the swamp.
When they pass the Sunshine State, come get your free orange juice banner or staple sign outside of the interstate. Tennessee doesn't turn into a a pumpkin. I don't know what it is about that place. I don't know if it's Todd Golden getting in women's DMs. I don't know.
Also Tony Vitello is just a proof. He's immune to all of this. Like Tony Vitello can go down to Gainesville. They can put on the Florida helmets or like the play, and it just doesn't. It doesn't matter. Tony Vitello plays by his own rules. Like it's just like it doesn't. I appreciate Tony Vitello because there's no. They are the kings of the conference, and it just doesn't feel like they're gettable in the same way that football and hoops are. And
I'm so glad you brought that up. Did you see the 25 schedule come out?
Yes.
SEC opener with Florida coming here.
Yeah.
Lindsey Nelson Stadium is going to be an absolute jungle. That's a hell of a.
I can't wait because I think my prediction though, and we can end on this, is like I think this 25 Tennessee baseball team, based on who I talked to and just kind of like getting ready for the season, the kind of personalities and the players here, I think this is going to be the closest we've had to the 2022 personality team, where I think
the villains are coming back.
I think this is a villain season, is my gut. And you're coming off a national championship. There's going to be, I love Hunter Hensley, Andrew Fisher, Liam Doyle, a lot of the guys in here. I'm just telling you, I think there's going to be some confidence with this Tennessee bunch in 2025. And I'm not saying they weren't confident the last couple of years, but I think you're going to see more of the Vol villains here in 25 than we've seen in previous years. I don't think the national media and other rival fan bases are going to like this 25 Tennessee team.
You said it. Print the t-shirts, put it on the wall.
I love it. Tyler Ivens, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at 991 The Sports Animal this week?
This week, transfer portal, college football playoff. Remember, there are a lot of people who are waiting for the Ohio States, Penn States, Notre Dames of the world to, I guess you should say Texas as well. There's full rosters. Remember, some of those guys are going to want to jet. They're going to want to go elsewhere, too, if playing time.
Ryan Wingo.
You heard it.
Come on home.
You heard it. I didn't want to say it, but you heard it. Those rosters are going to open up soon. How will Tennessee bounce back? Barnsley's heading back down to his old battleground. Rodney Terry, surprisingly 0-2 Texas team. Didn't think that was going to happen. They have to go Auburn, Tennessee back-to-back games after Auburn Auburn stumbled a little bit, but won. And Mike Keith, good friend, just got named the voice of the Vols after Kessling hangs it up. So Titans are going to have to find somebody because he is a dang good one. They could, and look, I got a lot of friends who I work with, personal people who I thought were great candidates for that job. And even some of them told me, I'll be okay as long as it's Mike. If I'm not going to put their business out there. I know I've said it often, but Tennessee, Danny White, the hires that they've made coaching. And then when it comes to the Ball Network, it was like, what could they do if they got Mike Keith back? Oh no, Mike wouldn't leave the NFL. Mike's home. And it's just, everything's cool. Everybody wants to live in East Tennessee.
We're full.
God, the vacancy sign. Just flip it on. No.
Yeah.
Everything's good, man. I don't know how long I can say Happy New Year to you, but Happy New Year to you. It's good to be a Tennessee Ball. It's good to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. And don't sled. Don't eat yellow snow and try to stay warm.
And don't be a hero. Just stay inside this weekend, folks. Stay inside.
Don't be a hero.
Yeah, don't be a hero. Tyler Ivens, thank you as always, my friend. Go subscribe and listen to 991 The Sports Animal every day if you are not already. And we will check back in again very soon.
Yeah, let's do it, dude.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.